You remember that one, right? 1980, Kool and the Gang released their biggest hit, Celebration. Listen, it became an international anthem of positivity and joy. Well, 200 days into the second Trump administration, there is a lot to celebrate and certainly a lot to be optimistic about.
That's Charles Payne literally channeling a North Korean news presenter with the cringiest celebration of Trump's first 200 days on his second term. Hi, Mediaite founding editor Colby Holland. If you were watching Fox Business that day, and most days, or Fox News for that matter, you'd have no idea that the Trump economy was doing very, very poorly and that most Americans are hurting.
Welcome to both of you. Robert, what was inflation when Biden took office?
I
I'll
think
tell
it was
you if you don't know.
9-10%.
No. Come on.
But more importantly,
How do we know that they're still hurting? Well, all the economic indicators from a year ago that were so bad, they're precisely the same, if not worse. And yet, Fox News, which made that a huge part of the electoral story riding into the 2024 general election, have gone remarkably silent, perhaps because they understand that story would hurt Trump. Again, if you were watching Fox News in August through October of 2024, what you heard on repeat was how bad the economy was.
When we ask people about how they feel about the policies of this administration versus the previous, double the amount of people surveyed say that Biden-Harris policies have hurt them rather than help them and their families economically. That's in stark contrast to how they feel when asked about the Trump administration.
Car insurance in the last 2 years went from $220 to $270, now to $320.
People are still struggling to pay their bills. We hear it all the time when we go to the diners. Look at that. Groceries are up. Also, the interest rates are sky high. So if you can't afford something and you put something on your credit card, you're paying a lot of money extra that you don't have to pay for those eggs, to pay for the bacon, to pay for the things to feed your family.
And yet, 200 days into Trump's second term, despite all of his promises of fixing all of this, it hasn't gotten any better. I researched and wrote about this in a column that I published on Friday for Mediaite, and I did a lot of research that went into this. Two of the biggest metrics we heard about in the run-up to the 2024 general election was the price of eggs and the price of gasoline. How are they today compared to a year ago? About the same, if not worse. And yet this is a story that Fox News is not choosing to cover with the urgency alarm under the second Trump administration as they did at the end of the Biden administration. I wonder why that is. And in case you need evidence that Trump administration is freaking out about how this is getting reported, just last week, Trump fired the chief statistician of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, insisting that the jobs report that was not impressive at all was rigged against him, that she was biased.
President, why did you fire the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics?
Because I think her numbers were wrong, just like I thought her numbers were wrong before the election. Days before the election, she came out with these beautiful numbers for Kamala, I guess Biden/Kamala, and she came out with these beautiful numbers trying to get somebody else elected. Then right after the election, I think on the 15th, November 15th, she had an $800,000 or $900,000 massive reduction. Said she made a mistake. That woman's numbers are...
Now, it doesn't take a genius to see that Trump is literally trying to shape numbers that tells a better story. In fact, he was in the Oval Office presenting economic indicators that he thought suited him well.
This one chart really says it better than anything. If you look at this is great, but this chart is pretty amazing right here. All new numbers. Okay?
But once you fire a sort of gold standard, bipartisan bureaucrat, administrator, because you don't like their numbers, it calls into question all the numbers that you're going to put forth moving forward.
Before the numbers that came out, I said, who is the person that does these numbers? And then they gave me stats about before the election. I had a similar problem. I mean, she gave out numbers that were so good for the Democrats. It was like unbelievable. And then right after the election, she corrected those numbers with, I think, almost 900,000 corrections. I think nobody had ever seen anything like it. Well, today she did the same thing with the 253,000, whatever the number was. No, we need people that we can trust. I mean, your question is a very good one. We need people we can trust.
how can we truly trust what the Trump administration is putting forth when he just fired the person because he didn't like what they were saying? Math is not political. And because they're the most loyal media surrogates out there, Fox News is following suit.
Really is amazing when you look at the record of the Bureau of Labor Statistics and their record of having to revise these things. It's always in the same direction. And we saw it throughout the Biden years where they would come out with numbers just in time for an election. You would have an election that would help Democrats, and then afterwards, all the revisions.
In this instance, by choosing to just ignore the negative numbers or the bad economy, judged by how it was a year ago. I looked into this through a transcription service called TV Eyes, which allows you to search by terms transcripts over the past year and a half. And what I found was stunning. A year ago today, the term inflation and economy were mentioned roughly 1,400, 1,500 times respectively. 1 year later, it's 50% less, roughly 800, 600 times respectively. Now, you can't understand the context of the times that those have been mentioned, but overall it gives you a good picture that a year ago in the run-up to the election, it was a hot topic. We were told that there was a lot of economic anxiety, perhaps because it was covered so vociferously by Fox News. Now, not so much. Now, to be clear, the economic fundamentals under Trump second term right now compared to the end of the Biden campaign remain unchanged. In fact, the indications are that things may have gotten even a little worse. Here's the data to prove it. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Consumer Price Index, which is a primary measure of inflation, increased by 3.2% over the past 12 months, as of June 2025, the most recent report. That is even a little bit worse than the 3% that of the annual inflation rate that we saw in June of 2024 at the end of the Biden administration. Again, inflation was a big issue that we needed to fix, that Trump promised to fix immediately. He hasn't. In fact, again, it's gotten marginally worse, but largely it stayed the same.
And meanwhile, these new U.S. tariff rates are the highest since the Great Depression. Inflation had already been creeping up, and Americans could now see even steeper prices on many goods like electronics and clothing.
Meanwhile, wage growth has stayed exactly the same. And in fact, relative to the price of goods, it's actually gone down. So if Americans were hurting in 2024, by that measure, they're hurting worse now.
And those 401k people who are depending, those retirees, all of that, just talking plain speak with them. Look, when this nation used to go to war, people in this country would support the war effort with their materials at home and making things for weaponry and all of that. We got to do 100% buy-in over this bumpy period. Just communicate.
In addition to the headline inflation numbers, the price of eggs and gas were huge, persistent issues in the 2024 election. But right now, the average retail price for a dozen eggs is around $3.50 in mid-2025. That's up 15% from about the same price a year ago in 2024. And gasoline prices, which are obviously heavily influence household budgets, gas is about $3.60 per gallon in July 2025, and that's nearly identical to the $3.55 in July of 2024. But this is bad news that you don't hear about in the 2025 second Trump term administration version of Fox News, which is terribly ominous for your wallet, your savings, or your 401k. And I'll explain why. Because if Fox News can't defend or rationalize how the Trump economy is stagflated or even gotten worse, then there's no defense of it. It's really bad. And yet all of this is happening before Trump's sort of draconian and controversial tariff policy is truly taking effect. Most of the financial experts that I know from across the partisan spectrum think things are going to get much worse before they get better, and expect all of those sort of barren shelves of the big box stores that we heard were going to happen in May. Well, now that the tariffs are actually starting, I'm told we can expect something like that in October or November. And I'm not being a panican, as Trump says. That's just cold hard facts. Now, it's clear Fox News clearly amplified economic concerns in the run-up to the 2024 election, which was a political narrative that helped Fox, and oddly kind of was self-fulfilling prophecy. If you keep hearing how bad things are, it's going to give you anxiety, and that's precisely where they were in 2024. Conversely, if they ignore it, there's less anxiety, even if the numbers are, like I said, exactly the same. Inflation's actually gone up. Our jobs report has gone flat. The prices of eggs and gas are basically the same, if not a little worse. The fact that Fox News has gone silent over these economic anxieties suggests, of course, that they can't defend it, which is bad news for anyone that's worried about their bottom line. The lesson is stark. Don't mistake silence for improvement. The economy isn't suddenly doing better under Trump because pundits are talking about them. In fact, the opposite is likely true. For the American consumer at home, I'd say keep an eye on two big things moving forward in the coming months. One, the data that emerges, and two, who's talking about it. Because when official numbers are questioned by the government and the media chorus kind of goes quiet, real problems get swept under the rug and your wallet will not be fine with that. Again, I'm Mediaite founding editor Colby Hall. Please click the like and subscribe button for more videos like this. Thank you for watching.